Long ago, in a time when the world was new, there was a great forest where all animals lived as one community. They spoke to each other, worked side by side, and held truth above all else. At the very heart of this forest stood a sacred clearing, a place they called the Forest of Truth. And in this clearing, there was a magnificent wooden drum, known to all as the Drum of Truth. This was no ordinary drum. It had a special magic. Whenever a lie was spoken nearby, the drum would beat on its own, a deep, resonant boom that exposed the falsehood for all to hear. Because of this drum, the forest thrived in peace and harmony. But there was one animal who despised the drum. His name was Ijapa the Tortoise. Ijapa was small and slow on his feet, but his mind was quick and cunning. Perhaps too cunning. He had a great love for things he didn't earn, food he didn't work for, praise he didn't deserve, and power he had no right to. While the other animals toiled honestly, building a better community, Ijapa was always searching for a shortcut, a clever trick to get ahead. He was convinced that his cleverness was far more valuable than simple honesty. One bright morning, the animals gathered in the Forest of Truth. The leopard, the strong and just ruler of the forest, had an important announcement. He stood before the assembly and declared that the forest needed a keeper of records. This would be a position of great trust. The keeper would be responsible for managing the community's food supplies, overseeing land boundaries, and helping to settle disputes. The leopard's voice was firm as he warned them, "This is a role for the most honest animal among us. Deceit will bring ruin to us all." The weight of this responsibility silenced the crowd. Many animals felt they were not worthy and looked down, afraid of the challenge. But then, a figure slowly stepped forward. It was Ijapa the Tortoise. He raised his head high and announced, "I will serve the forest. I know I have made mistakes in the past, but I have changed. I am now an honest tortoise." His words hung in the air, met with skeptical silence. The animals remembered his tricks and his lazy ways. To prove his newfound honesty, Ijapa had to face the ultimate test. He stood before the great drum of truth. The leopard looked him in the eye and asked a simple, direct question. "Ijapa, have you ever taken something that was not yours?" Without a moment's hesitation, Ijapa replied, "No, never." Immediately, the drum let out a deafening boom boom boom. The sound echoed through the clearing. The animals couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ijapa's lie had been exposed so quickly, so completely. Humiliated, Ijapa fell to the ground, begging for another chance. He pleaded with the leopard and the other animals, tears welling in his eyes. "Please," he cried, "that was the old me. From this day forward, I swear I will be honest. Give me this chance to prove my worth." The animals began to murmur among themselves. Some thought he was a lost cause, but others felt a twinge of pity. After a long discussion, the leopard, hoping to inspire true change, made a difficult decision. "Very well, Ijapa," he said. "You will be the keeper of records. But be warned, we will be watching." And so, against their better judgment, the animals agreed. For the first few weeks, everything seemed to go smoothly. But then, strange things started to happen. The community's store of yams and fruits began to dwindle, with no explanation. The carefully marked boundaries between family lands mysteriously shifted overnight. And whenever there was a dispute, the judgment always seemed to favor Ijapa's closest friends. The other animals grew worried. They would question Ijapa, but he always had a clever excuse. "A simple accounting error," he'd say, "or the sticks marking the land must have been moved by the wind." He was very careful to never make these excuses near the drum of truth, always finding a reason to be somewhere else. Hunger and suspicion began to creep into the once peaceful forest, turning friends into rivals. The leopard was no fool. He watched the growing chaos with a heavy heart and a sharp eye. He saw the discontent, heard the whispers of injustice. One day, he summoned Ijapa to his side. His voice was calm but firm. "Ijapa," he said, "there is too much confusion. Tomorrow at dawn, you will bring all the records to the forest of truth. We will review them, one by one, in front of the drum. A cold fear gripped Ijapa. He knew his web of lies was about to be unraveled. The drum would beat for every falsified number, every altered map. His reputation, his position, his life in the forest, it would all be over. That night, Ijapa couldn't sleep. He paced back and forth in his shell, his mind racing. He couldn't run, he couldn't hide. The truth was waiting for him. So, he devised a desperate, wicked plan. If he couldn't hide from the truth, he would destroy the source of it. Under the cover of darkness, he crept into the sacred clearing. He picked up a heavy stone and, with all his might, struck the drum of truth. But the drum was ancient and strong. Instead of shattering, it let out a loud, wounded groan that vibrated through the silent forest. The sound woke the nearby animals. Startled, Ijapa dropped the stone and scurried away into the shadows just as others arrived. By morning, the news had spread like wildfire. The forest was in shock. The sacred drum of truth was cracked. A deep fracture ran across its surface, silencing its magic. The leopard arrived, his heart heavy with sorrow and anger. "Who has done this terrible thing?" he roared. Before anyone else could speak, Ijapa stepped forward, pointing a trembling finger at the ruler. It was the leopard. He shouted. "I saw him." He was afraid the drum would expose his own secrets, so he destroyed it. The animals gasped. They were thrown into confusion. Their king, accused of such a crime. Without the drum to reveal the truth, who could they believe? Chaos was about to consume the forest. Just as panic began to set in, a slow, deliberate voice cut through the noise. An ancient tortoise, the oldest and wisest in the forest, shuffled forward. His name was Ijapa, and his shell was worn smooth with age. "The truth does not live in the wood of a drum," he said calmly. "It lives in the heart and in the consistency of a story. A lie changes to fit its audience, but the truth is constant." He proposed a test. The leopard and Ijapa would each tell their story, 3 times over, to the entire assembly. First, the leopard spoke. He calmly recounted how he had summoned Ijapa, how he had gone to sleep, and how he was awoken by the sound of the drum. He told his story once, twice, and a third time. Each telling was exactly the same, clear and unwavering. Then it was Ijapa's turn. He began his story with great confidence, describing how he saw the leopard creeping into the clearing. But when he was asked to tell it a second time, he added new details, saying the moon was full, that he'd heard the leopard whispering to himself. By the third telling, his story had changed again. Now he claimed another animal was with the leopard. The animals listened closely, and they noticed the inconsistencies. His story was unraveling. As he stumbled over his words, a soft, faint thrumming sound came from the cracked drum. It wasn't a loud boom, but a quiet, persistent beat. The truth, even when wounded, was making itself heard. The animals needed no further proof. They looked at Ijapa with scorn and disappointment. The leopard, his name cleared, delivered the judgment. "Ijapa," he declared, his voice filled with sorrow. "You have abused our trust and tried to destroy the very heart of our community. You are no longer our keeper of records. You are to be banished from this forest, and your name will serve as a warning." And so, Ijapa was sent away, forced to live a lonely life. His cracked shell, a result of his own past clumsiness, became a permanent symbol of his broken promises. With Ijapa gone, the animals worked together to meticulously repair the sacred drum. They righted the wrongs he had done. Food was redistributed fairly, land boundaries were restored, and trust slowly began to heal. Peace returned to the forest, stronger and wiser than before. From that day on, every young animal was told the story of Ijapa the Tortoise. They learned a valuable lesson: cleverness without honesty is a path to shame. A lie might give you a head start, but the truth will always, always catch up in the end. And any power you gain through deceit is built on sand, destined to crumble. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of wisdom from around the world. See you next time.